All right. So what is your name?
James McCarroll, Deputy James McCarroll, Isla Vista Foot Patrol, uh, Isla Vista Community Resource Deputy.
Mm-hmm. And if I may ask, how old are you?
I'm 39.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How long have you been in Isla Vista?
I have been assigned here for 2.5 years. Yeah.
That's cool. So that was 2016?
15, I believe.
15.
Yeah, August of 2015.
Oh, because of that half. I can't do math, apparently. What is the best part of Isla Vista, in your opinion?
I think, from my position, being community resource deputy, I would say the collaboration of people. There's a lot of people around here that are doing a lot of great things to try to make sure Isla Vista thrives. So that's the best thing.
And then, what would you say is the worst?
The overconsumption of alcohol.
Yeah.
A lot of minors are drinking they shouldn't be, which leads to a ton of other problems.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you. I guess going off of that then, what is your opinion about partying in Isla Vista?
I think my opinion about partying in Isla Vista, I really don't have much of an opinion other than if people were safe, it wouldn't be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
If people respected their neighbors and they were safe, we wouldn't have an issue with it at the Sheriff's Department. So that's my opinion of it.
If I may ask, what would safe partying look like to you?
Keeping the numbers to a minimum. Well, I wouldn't say a minimum, to an appropriate number.
Mm-hmm.
Monitoring who's coming in and out. If you're responsible and you're of age to drink, monitor who's actually drinking.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to have a house party, then you need to have someone designated and looking around, kind of being a chaperone for people in need, a sort of safe space if things are getting too heavy for someone or if someone needs medical attention.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, making sure that there's no violence, which falls around in the chaperone area. And not having to spill out into the streets, having people do dangerous things like jump off balconies,
Mm-hmm.
push people off balconies, and fights in the yards, things like that. So as long as it's safe, most of the time, well, we don't even get called, honestly. It's the parties that are out of control that we get called on. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I guess also going off of that and like talking about house parties and how things can get out of control, what have you heard about Deltopia then? Or know about it since you've been here for 2.5 years?
Well, I've worked with the Sheriff's Department for, I believe, going on my 12th year here. So I've always been a part of Deltopia.
Oh,
and
wow.
Deltopia, before it was Deltopia, it was Floatopia,
Mm-hmm.
which started on the beach, and that created a whole bunch of issues for the county and the Sheriff's Department. So it moved to Deltopia. And, Deltopia is kind of like a Halloween where it can be perceived as a sanctioned event, but it really isn't. We just have to put the number of officers and deputies out here to make sure that people are relatively safe, because
Mm-hmm.
it's a very unsafe environment for those who are not, I would say, aware of their surroundings, that are naive to things in life. It can be a very dangerous situation. So my thoughts on Deltopia is I think it's great if it's safe. I don't mind the amount of local people being here celebrating their community.
Mm-hmm.
But there have been issues with Deltopia. So,
could you define what a sanctioned event means?
Yeah, so a sanctioned event is something that's actually sponsored by one party or another. So it can be an individual that sponsors it, or it can be a corporation or a business that
Mm-hmm.
sponsors an event. Deltopia just happens, much like Halloween, and it's a word-of-mouth thing.
Mm-hmm.
And because the Sheriff Department and every other resource around Isla Vista and parts of the county make arrangements to make sure people are safe, it can almost look like we're sponsoring it. But we're not, because anything you kind of provide security for, it kind of falls in line of something being sponsored, but the only reason we're here is to make sure people are safe. And that's why sometimes it can look like a sponsored event, but it truly isn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess... Oh, okay. what was your perception of partying in Isla Vista before you arrived?
Well, before I arrived here, my perception was that Isla Vista was completely out of control. There was a lot of young people who were basically living it up and living a party life. So that was my perception before I started working here.
And then has that perception changed or stayed the same?
No, it's changed drastically. Being a community resource deputy, as I mentioned earlier, I have an opportunity to work with a lot of the people that aren't seen by the outside crowd. So a lot of the people that put in the hard work to make sure that Ivy thrives, that people are safe, that the little voices of this kind of overcrowded community are being heard. I have an opportunity to work with those people, closely with those people, and together we get a lot of things done. And I have an opportunity to not see students at 1 o'clock in the morning when they're drunk, upset, irritated, or what have you, or falling victim to a crime. I have an opportunity to interact with them on a daily basis and get to know them, get to know their names, and get to know what they're about and how they operate. So my perception of IV and the party life here has definitely changed.
Are you at liberty to say what kind of people are helping that you work with to help make Isla Vista a better place?
Yeah, sure. We have multiple people, and the university has done a great job of helping. So you have your AS committee, you have UCIV, you have Life of the Party, you have the food co-op, you have the Recs and Parks, you have the youth center, you have Thrive IV, the community networks. Just about everything. You even have the property owners that have come to the table and have stepped up in many ways to try and make IV safe. So it's no secret here that the business, the property owners, the community networks, the residents of IV, we also meet with them. Everybody's kind of stepped up to the table and decided that after Deltopia, after the riots, that, hey, we need to do something to make sure our kids in this community are safe. So anything you can think of where we work together, even from outside of the county, the drug and alcohol facilities, rape crisis, all the way down to behavioral wellness. We're now looking more towards people's mental health situations and the issues that those things can cause. So everybody's on board.
Awesome, thank you. And then the optional question, and feel free to bypass it. Where you come from, or I guess in your past, your personal, have your interactions with the police been positive or negative, or not even just positive and negative, because that's so black and white, but could you describe it at all?
Yeah, I would say I grew up, I'm from Inglewood, spent a good portion of my life in Bakersfield.
Oh, that's where I'm from.
Oh, really? Yeah, so I would say my parents were not pro-law enforcement or pro-military. Hell, I don't even think they were pro-American. You know what I mean? So, and I did grow up in poverty, and law enforcement was always there. But fortunately for me, they were there to help me. Obviously, being in those communities, you see a lot of different things. You see law enforcement conduct their business, and whether you agree with it or not, at the end of the day, I believe they were trying to do the best they could in the circumstances they were in, and in the communities, you know, that they were assigned to. Not an easy job, and I can definitely say that with confidence now that I'm a cop. But I understood growing up that if law enforcement wasn't there when I needed them, I would probably not be here today. So I have a completely different take on law enforcement. Not to say that a few of them haven't rubbed me the wrong way in my past, right? But again, you got to take the good with the bad. So to answer your question directly, I grew up below poverty. I didn't have much. I didn't really have family. I have seen the good and bad of law enforcement. But I would like to err on the side of them just trying to do the best they can with the tools they were given, which were not so great at one point in time. So, yeah, so that's my question about law enforcement.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
What then is your perception of policing specifically in Isla Vista?
Okay.
Let me. Yeah. Because I know that the spacing got off when I sent it on
yeah,
the...
it's a little off.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Yeah. Specifically in Isla Vista.
Of course, I'm a little biased.
That's fair. That's totally welcome.
I would say policing in Isla Vista is not an issue. I believe that my day and today's day are different. When I was growing up, yeah, you didn't like the cops, but you knew you had to listen to them and you moved on about your business. And the biggest conflict I see today is the whole question of authority. And people are expecting law enforcement to have evolved with the times, and we haven't, because we still have that difficult task of making sure people are safe. We still have that difficult task of wearing every hat under the sun. Cat gets stuck in a tree, you call law enforcement. Someone shoots, you call law enforcement. Someone's mentally ill running around, you call law enforcement. So I think that's missed a lot of times, especially in a community like this where you have so many young people who are really passionate, very intelligent, but they also want to party. And they see us as someone who's trying to take away their fun. So I would say I don't see the big issue. I think there's a huge perceived issue of how law enforcement treat people, but I guarantee you, I can speak for the guys in this station, the foot patrol station, that if you're fair with us, we'll be more fair with you. And at the end of the day, we only care about your safety. And if we have to put you in jail to make you safe, we will. We have to take you home to make you safe, we will. If we have to babysit you in a sense, we will. You know why? Because at the end of the day, that's our job, and we want to make sure people are safe. So I don't think it's big. I keep hearing this major issue, but we are not in some places around the country. We are in beautiful Santa Barbara, Goleta, California, right? Isla Vista, if you will. I don't see the issues that people are continuing to bring.
Was this perception different before you joined the force here? No. You mean before I came to Isla Vista? Yeah, perception of like the police here.
Yeah, I think my perception was different because again, you have to go into the history of IV in the sheriff's department in UCPD. I often explain to people that when you have these big old events, right? Our deputies and officers were forced to be here. So when you're forcing someone to do something against their will, then you're going to get a different attitude, regardless of how beautiful this place is, how cool people can be. When you're forcing someone to do something, you're going to get a different outlook on the community from those people. Their perspective's going to be different. So for me, I've been here for almost 12 years, but there's been people that have been here for 30, 35 years, and they've never ever had a Halloween off, which means they've never had the opportunity to take their kids trick-or-treating. So from the outside looking in, they're like, oh, great, another year I'm going to have to go and deal with a whole bunch of obnoxious, drunk people who don't appreciate what I do, who try to beat me up, run from me, and call me under every name under the sun. So when you're dealing with those outside perceptions like that, yeah, your perception of things are quite different, especially when your boss is telling you 2 weeks before Halloween and a week after Halloween, you will not take vacation. So you see how that outside perception of IV can be different.
Absolutely.
So coming from the outside looking in, didn't really care to be here. No, because I was forced to be here. But there was a time where deputies signed up to be here, and those were the deputies that were in the community all day long. They knew the people. They knew how IV worked. They saw what it was like in a day. They were able to build those relationships, and for those deputies, it was all good and it was wonderful because they understood a different side. To the outsiders coming in, like myself a few years back, or the guy that's worked 30 years and never had a Halloween off. I think our perceptions are going to be a little different of Isla Vista and in this community. So Yeah, my perception was definitely different, but now that I'm part of IB, I'm not in IB, I'm actually part of IB. You know, I view this as a big circle, and I'm a part of that circle of progress and change and making things safer and better. So, yeah, my perception's changed now. So
That's interesting. That makes a lot of sense too. And I think, yeah, a lot of people overlook that idea.
can you imagine having a kid and never being able to take them trick or treating, or
Yeah.
you know, April comes, you want to do something for Easter or what have you, and you were scheduled to be here.
Every year, it's crazy.
But it's changed. It's changed.
It has changed.
We are definitely changing. Last Halloween was the first time in probably 30 years that we didn't have to staff like we used to. We had it at bare minimums. It was at bare minimums. And that was awesome. And I hope we can continue to push that with Deltopia coming. It all depends on the people. It all depends on the people.
Yeah. So. Okay. What have you heard, though? I guess it's not so heard. But so what can you tell us about... I guess you've kind of answered this. But the question, I'll just give you the full question. I'll take it as however. What can you tell us about police in Isla Vista? And does this change during Deltopia? Which I think is where I'm going to focus that question, because I think you've told us. But you're welcome to tell us more.
Yeah, I mean, does our policing change... Our perception of policing, I guess, the community change in Isla Vista during Deltopia? Is that kind of where we are?
I think so, yeah. So, like, based on, like, day-to-day, I mean, obviously it changes, but I guess we're looking for
does
a
the mentality
significant change.
change?
Maybe, yeah.
So I think I get what you're saying there. So every day, like I said, we go out here and our jobs are prioritized, right? Safety, how we can help, we get home safe, right? So during an event like Deltopia, those you bring in more people from the outside, and your sense of security lessens as deputies and officers, because now you know on a normal day or weekend you're out here with 4 or 5 deputies and you might encounter a group of 300, but now you're probably going to be in a group of 4 or 5 deputies walking in the middle of 3,000. So our sense of security lessons, our heightened sense of protecting ourselves go up. Again, you're bringing in multiple people from the outside who aren't really a part of this community. They're a part of the sheriff's department, but they're not a part of this community. So you're dealing with people who may not have the same tolerance with someone as I would, or someone else that work here would. So I guess, yeah, it does change. It changes by the numbers. Things get a little more serious, a little less laid back, because now we're put in a situation where we're severely outnumbered. And we don't know who's here to do what. And given a history of 2 years ago, 3 years ago at this point, wow, actually it was, it'll be 3, it'll be 4 this year with the riots. You know, it didn't help the cause when it comes to law enforcement. So I hope that kind of answers that.
Yeah, that was great, thank you. And it's a good segue into what do you know or can tell us about the Deltopia riots of 2014?
You know, I did not honestly do much research on that. I've done more on Elliot Rogers since I've been in this position. But I can tell you that from my circle of people, the perception is that the riots were caused by outsiders and not locals. And having said that, then I don't think it'll be an issue, because we're kind of squashed a lot of the outsiders from coming in. But the riot itself was just something that was, in my opinion, that was just boiling over. There's just been a ton of things in the media, a ton of issues with law enforcement, a ton of people in law enforcement that should probably not be there. I wouldn't say a ton, but a few, and a few of many, which I guess you'd be a ton in another number. But so I think people, you know, again, it goes back to where we are in society, you know, that whole question of authority, and we're not going to take it mentality. And Isla Vista is notorious for that. That's how the Bank of America got burned down and the
Mm-hmm.
other riots.
Yeah.
So my perception of, or what I think about the riots of 2014, you know, it was just something that was just going to happen. It just had the perfect storm. You bring in a whole bunch of outsiders. They bring in their negative views on law enforcement, just like we spoke about. We bring in a whole bunch of outsiders, and then they bring their negative views of Isla Vista. The only difference is they can't just run around, throw rocks and bottles, and get drunk and do this stuff, right? But you bring in a whole bunch of negative people, and they have these negative perspectives on law enforcement, and when they get in the crowd, they pretty much can do whatever they want. So when they started the riots by assaulting a couple officers and sending them to the hospital, you know, it just escalated from there, because obviously we're going to respond to that. And then the more we respond, the more the crowd responds, and then it becomes a tug of war of space and a complete waste of time, in my opinion, because how do you stop it? I don't know. But so my opinion, my opinion on the riot was, I think it was the perfect storm. A lot of outsiders came in. They had intent for the most part and motivation, and they achieved kind of what they wanted to achieve, which was tear up Isla Vista and in the process hurt a few cops. So,
well, thank you.
and I don't think it was, I just don't think it was the normal Isla Vista crowd, honestly.
Okay, yeah. So based on what you've told me about the riots, do you think the amount of police at Deltopia now is warranted?
You know, I think we have significantly reduced our numbers in law enforcement. You may not see as many, however, you might, because Deltopia is a daytime event, and people start like drinking at 5 o'clock in the morning and doing whatever. So it's kind of hard to keep the numbers out during Deltopia as opposed to Halloween, because you can cut the noise off at a certain time, and Halloween doesn't start for, you know, really kick off to like nighttime for a lot of people. But I think the numbers of deputies will be based off what we perceive the crowd's going to be leading up to Deltopia. I would say, I can't say that the number of deputies and officers are incorrect, because you never know what you're going to get until that day falls or that week falls. And we live by a motto of it's better to have it and not need it. Or it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So it's a lot easier for us to bring deputies and officers here, say, oh, we don't need these 100 cops here. It's easier for us to let them go than to have a full scale, oh my God, what happened? There's 15,000 people here and we got 25 cops. A little harder to get that force together, right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that the numbers aren't warranted. I would say that the situation dictates the amount of people we have, and much like Halloween, we let a ton of deputies and officers go. So I think we'll have numbers this time during Deltopia, maybe not as many. And as time goes on throughout the course of the day, we'll reduce those numbers if needed, and, you know, guys that get to go home to their families, and people won't feel so intimidated by the amount of uniforms that they see. So that's the best I can answer that.
No, that's more than great. Thank you so much. And the last question is, do you think the amount of police at Deltopia should change or stay the same? And I think you've kind of answered that, but if you want to expand on it, you're more than welcome to.
Well, I think, again, just to reiterate what I was saying with the numbers, if the crowds are low, the number of sworn personnel is low. Crowds are high, then we're going to be here, and there's going to be a lot of us, because, again, at the end of the day, it boils down to public safety. And it would be a shame if you yourself or one of your friends was caught in a mob full of people and we couldn't get you out because we only had, and not say we wouldn't try, we'll go in there and we would probably get beat to a pulp and we probably wouldn't make it, but it does you no good if we can effectively do our jobs. So The numbers are going to more likely depend on the amount of people that we think are going to be there. And I perceive this Deltopia being better or more people than the last.
Oh.
I do. Because the culture, again, is shifting to this whole, people forget. That's all I can say. People forget. And it always cracks me up when people say to me, "Why are you guys even here? We don't need cops." Well, seriously? so we're back to that right now. We're back to that. So that's the answer to that. People will dictate. The community and others will dictate how many cops are going to be out there.
If I ask a follow-up question, then
ask me anything you like.
What can we do as students then to make it easier or more amiable, like, for everybody? Deltopia too, I think, is part of our focus for this project, but also in general.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I'll answer for Deltopia first, and I will say that, again, the community and the university and the AS and student orgs are doing great job. Just the fact that the university put forth money to take about 5,000 people off of the streets. Now we're looking at getting together and doing something where we can take some of these city college kids off the streets as well. So I would say just continue to support your AS and other groups that want to find alternative, safe ways of celebrating Deltopia. That's a great thing to do. And in general, I would say, as far as the parties that we see of 200 or 300, just be safe. I understand nobody wants to go to the party with 10 people. It sucks, right? And that's not what we're asking, but we're asking if you're going to go to a party, one, be responsible. Two, I'll throw this out here for our young women. It's dangerous. And we know we have a huge problem with young women and even some cases young men being taken advantage of. Party with someone. If you can find a designated driver, then try to find a designated person to watch over your group and make sure that eyes are always being kept on every situation, because we can't be inside the parties. And Lord knows we would love to be, but we would be the only ones inside the party, right? So I would tell the students how they can help us is just be safe. Take those measures to be safe. If you're going to party, you're going to drink, then rotate that. Rotate it. Okay, hey, Friday night, you're designated. You're watching over us. Saturday night, I'll do it. However you want to do it. But there has to be some type of accountability from the groups that are going, because we can't be there. If we could, we would, but no one would party, obviously, because they ain't going to do it in front of us, right? So in lieu of us being at every party and it being a ghost town, I would say people need to step up, kind of the whole it's on us and it's take care of each other, my brother's keeper type deal, where you watch out for your group, and not only for your group. If you see someone who's on a solo and looks lost and maybe someone's trying to take advantage of them, do something about it. At the very minimum, call us and we'll come out there and ruin everybody's night. You know what I mean? But it's okay. I'd rather piss 300 people off than to have one people fall victim to some crime. And that's the way we see it. You know what I mean? So that's what you can do. Just be safe.
All right. Well, thank you so much.